Hello everyone, welcome to What If Luffy Died Fighting Akainu and Went to Highschool DxD Part 1. Before we start, please go support Javier Ramirez 042 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Prologue. Our story begins with our favorite pirates fighting against the Navy. They had already defeated Admirals Kizaru, Fujitora and Green Bull, leaving Luffy's fight against Akainu. Both were in a tough battle until both launched themselves against the other with a powerful attack. Fujiwara, Akainu, but this shout they collided with each other causing an explosion. When everything calmed down, the Mugiwara saw that nothing was left of the battle, realizing what it meant. Luffy Nami shouted in pain. In a certain dimension. Poor boy, he did not achieve his dream, nor could he know love. I will send him to a world to grow in every way and take care of certain matters. But I will send him when he is 10 years old and without any memories of him, except for his name. Said a certain being, seeing Luffy's soul adrift and sending it into a portal. In another world, in a certain city in Japan, a certain brown-haired woman was walking through the streets after shopping when she gave a sigh. Since the doctor told us that I cannot give birth to any child, this sadness has not gone away. Several failed pregnancies and now I can't have children because of it. Kami, if you listen to me, please grant me the miracle of having a child, she said, looking at the sky. Suddenly, he heard the voice of a child in a nearby alley saying, "I'm hungry." She went to see who she was and found a tender boy with jet black hair, a scar on his eye, as well as an X-shaped scar on his chest, and dressed in very large clothes. "Oh, poor little boy. Where are your parents?" the woman asked. The boy looked at her curiously and said, "I don't know, I don't remember anything except my name." "And what's your name?" she asked him sweetly. The boy put on a big smile and said, "My name is Monkey D. Luffy, Shishishi." "Haha, you're so cute." "I'm Mickey Hyodo, nice to meet you," Mickey said with a smile. Then, Luffy's stomach roared with fury and the little boy said, "I'm hungry." Mickey looked at him sadly and something occurred to her. "Do you want to come to my house for dinner?" "Buy a lot of food for dinner," she said with a smile. Luffy looked at her with drool coming out of her mouth and asked, "Will there be a lot of meat?" "Sure, I'll do whatever you want," Mickey said with a smile. The boy jumped for joy and followed the woman to her house. At the Hyodo residence, Luffy ate voraciously as if there were no tomorrow, while Mickey talked to her husband. "Honey, can we adopt him? I have grown fond of the boy and I don't want to leave him alone," she told him. "I don't know, he eats too much and he would have to work extra to buy the food he eats," said Mr. Hyodo, looking at Luffy. "Honey, I can't take the sadness anymore. I want a child more than anything and I can't have it naturally. I asked Kami to give me a son and he sent me Luffy. Please, it's our only chance to be parents." Mickey begged with tears. Her husband sighed and said, "Okay, but I will have to work more for food." Mickey hugged him with love saying, "Thank you darling, you have made me so happy." "No problem, I do it because I love you," he said with a smile. Then, Mickey went to Luffy and said, "Luffy, I have good news for you." Luffy looked at her with a smile and asked, "Is there more food?" "It's not that, it's about the fact that we want to adopt you," Mickey said with a giggle. Adibbed her. "What is that?" Luffy asked confused. "Adopting means welcoming a child as a son. My husband and I will adopt you as our son and we will be your parents," Mickey said. "I see, but is that good?" Luffy asked. "Yes Luffy. You will live with us, we will take care of you, and you can have a family," Mickey said with a smile. "Sounds great, then say goodbye," Luffy shouted happily. "Hahaha, we will have to take you to school so you can learn. But I'm happy Luffy, now you are my son and I am your mother," Mickey said hugging him. Luffy felt warm from the hug and returned it with a smile. Then, they took Luffy so they could adopt him according to the law and from that day on he became Hyodo D. Luffy. 6 years later, at Ku Academy, a raven-haired boy could be seen resting on a tree. "Wow, it's good to rest from so much studying," the boy said with a sigh. Then, he saw 2 boys running towards him shouting, "Luffy, save us," shouted a bald boy. "Please friend, the girls want to kill us," shouted a boy with glasses. Luffy gave a bigger sigh and stood up saying, "How did I get together with these 2? He went into pursuit and let his 2 friends pass him. The girls stopped when they saw him and Luffy said, "I imagine they spied on them while they were changing." "That's right, Luffy-kun. We are going to give them divine punishment for their perversion," said one of the furious girls. Luffy scratched his head with a sigh and said, "I'll take care of these 2 perverts, you go back to what you were doing calmly." He gave them a smile that made all the girls sigh and the leader said, "Okay Luffy-kun, but only because you are one of the most handsome in the academy, in addition to being the Ice King. I hope you decide to have a girlfriend and maybe you will choose me." Luffy smiled and said, "I'm sorry, but I want to choose my girlfriend well and not fall like these 2. It's a shame, because whoever gets to be your girlfriend will be very lucky," the girl said, leaving. After the girls left, Luffy turned around to find the place empty. He put on an amused smile and used that strange gift he had since he was 11 to look for them. When he found them, he went to the place where they were and saw them hidden in the old academy building. He crept towards them until he was behind them. "I hope Luffy doesn't find us, Motohama," said the bald man. "I hope so, Mitsuda. Heck, if we could only bring Luffy to the perverted side we would be a great trio," Motohama said, adjusting his glasses. "You're right, but the Ice King can't because he wants to do things right," Mitsuda said mockingly. But both were hit by two of Luffy's fists, leaving them on the ground. "I would never enter that side with you so that girls can chase me for spying on them." "No thanks," Luffy shouted with shark teeth. But suddenly he had a headache and several images of an angry orange-haired girl flashed through his head. What was that? He asked himself confused. But he felt the presence of someone watching him and when he looked up he could see a girl with crimson hair looking at him. She seemed beautiful to him, her type since she had one of the hair colors she liked. Redeeds. But when he looked at her hair, images of that girl with reddish hair that he saw near him on a boat flashed back to him. He shook his head and asked, "Who was that girl?" Motohama adjusted his glasses and responded, "Rias Gremory, 995890, one of the queens of the academy. Her family owns a large global company and they own several hotels around the world." Luffy stared at the window for a while and said, "I see. Now go ask for an apology." "Do we have to do it?" They both shouted with fear. "Of course it is," Luffy shouted furiously. Meanwhile, inside the building, "Akeno, who is that boy with jet black hair?" Rias asked looking at a chessboard. The girl with black hair tied in a ponytail and big breasts started to think and said, "I think his name is Hyodo D. Luffy, named the Ice King of the Academy." "King of Ice? Why do they call it that?" Rias asked curiously. Ara because he doesn't show interest in the girls at the academy and has a cold aura with those who want to take advantage of him. He is similar to Kiba-kun, only colder," Akeno responded with an amused smile. "I see, and what does the D in his name mean?" Rias asked, curious about that information. "I don't really know, but I'm also curious because unlike other initials in names, this one has more power," Akeno said thoughtfully. Rias put on a thoughtful look as she looked at the red pawn piece. She put on a smile and said, "He is an interesting boy. Kaneko, keep an eye on him." A short girl with white hair appeared and said, "Yes, President." Back with Luffy, he was on a bridge deep in his thoughts. "Who is that girl with orange hair that appeared in my head? Why do I have these images?" He thought confused. But he noticed how a black-haired girl wearing clothing from another academy was looking at him. "Do you want something?" he asked. The girl bowed saying, "Please, she go out with me." Luffy rolled his eyes at her and thought she should give him a chance. She was his type of girl and he didn't see anything wrong with trying to have a girlfriend. "Okay," he said with a smile. The girl smiled and said, "Thank you, we will have a date on the weekend." With that, she walked away leaving Luffy alone. He just shrugged and went to his house. But he didn't see the white-haired girl who was watching him while he ate ice cream. Weekend. Luffy had introduced Yuma to his friends, not to show off, but because he knew that if he didn't do it and they found out, they would beat him up. The girls at the academy were jealous of Yuma for getting the Ice King and wanted to kill her. The weekend had already arrived and Luffy was waiting for Yuma at the assigned place. He looked at the clock seeing how late it was when a girl handed him a strange brochure with a symbol. She took it and put it in her pocket when Yuma appeared before him. "Sorry, am I late?" she asked. "Does not neglect." "I just arrived," said Luffy. "My mother taught me not to hurt a woman's heart," Luffy thought. Then, they started the date where the two went shopping and Luffy bought her a pink bracelet. They went to eat ice cream where Luffy wanted to know about her, but Yuma only told him a few things about her life. As night fell, they both went to a park and when they reached a fountain, Yuma stood in front of him to say, "Luffy-kun, could I make you a very important request?" Luffy looked at her seriously, but he didn't want to hurt her date so he said, "Okay, what do you want?" Yuma approached her ear and said, "Would you die for me?" Luffy upon hearing that, felt danger and said, "Could you repeat?" Yuma looked at him with a face he had never seen and repeated, "Would you die for me?" Luffy jumped back with an agility he didn't know he had and watched as Yuma's clothing changed to a more revealing one. Then, black feathered wings emerged from her back and she looked at him with a cold face. Suddenly, Luffy felt his stomach being pierced and saw some kind of glowing spear on her body. "Don't make me look so handsome, it's not your fault, it's the fault of the sacred gear they gave you. I really enjoyed our date, but I have to make sure there are no problems with my plans. Goodbye, darling," she said, disappearing. Luffy fell to the ground in pain and in his last moments he thought, "Fuck, I can't believe I'm going to die this way. I couldn't help my parents get a better life to thank them for everything they did for me. I think I'll go with that regret." Suddenly, images of a certain black-haired boy dying in his arms came to mind. "Those images, I will leave without knowing what they are. I wish I could have a second chance," he thought looking at her hand. Seeing the red blood, he remembered the hair of two women. One orange and one crimson. "I wish I could see those girls at least once," he thought with a smile. Suddenly, the pamphlet in his pocket flashed and a strange circle appeared in place. The last thing Luffy saw was crimson hair in front of him, and he heard a voice say, "If you are going to die, then live for me." And the rest was darkness. Chapter 1. I am a demon. Luffy, you ate all the food again. Luffy, let's finish them off. Luffy, I'm afraid to go to that island. Luffy, I will guide you to your dream like the navigator that I am. Luffy woke up in his bed upset by what he saw in that strange dream. He felt like he knew these people very well, but he couldn't remember their names or their stories. Then, he remembered what happened on the date with Yuma, and looking at his stomach, he saw that he was unharmed. He could have taken it as a dream, but he learned that things like that couldn't be a dream, so he decided to investigate at the academy. Later, at the academy. How do you not remember Yuma? I presented her a few days ago as my girlfriend, Luffy shouted at his two friends. Of course not, or do you want to make us suffer by telling us that you have a girlfriend and we don't? Mitsuda shouted with tears. You're cruel, Luffy. Motohama also shouted with tears. Don't worry, I think I was wrong about that, Luffy said, trying to calm them down with a sigh. But he saw the girl named Rias Gremory, and as she passed in front of him, she looked at him with a beautiful smile. Luffy remembered that she appeared in that incident, so he decided to talk to her at some point. Hey Luffy, what are you doing seeing one of the school queens? Mitsuda asked angrily. What's wrong with it? I'm free to watch whatever I want, said Luffy. Well, I think you can't look at it. It is said that she is so adored by girls that they forbid boys to look at her. So I'm afraid you don't have the freedom to do what you want, Motohama said, adjusting his glasses. Luffy gritted his teeth and shouted, I will not let them take away my freedom. I will be the freest man in the world, and I will reach One Piece too. But he stopped realizing what he was saying and wondering why he had said that. One Piece? What the hell is that? Mitsuda asked, laughing. Luffy was bothered by that comment and left saying, I'm not in the mood today, I'm going to class. Hey, wait Luffy, let's go to my house to see. Mitsuda yelled at him. I have no interest in your porn movies, goodbye, Luffy said, leaving. At night, Luffy walked down the street, realizing that his eyesight had improved, allowing him to see at night. He took it as an improvement in his senses and walked to the fountain where he last saw Yuma. What's going on? First those strange images in my head of those strange people, and then this case with the girl I dated. I need answers, Luffy said seriously. Wow, the boy is still alive, said a voice. Luffy sensed danger and jumped back when the sky turned weird and a man in a trench coat and hat appeared in front of him. You have good reflexes, kid, the man said with a smile. Luffy looked at him cautiously and asked, who are you? There is no point in telling you who I am, because you are already dead, the man said, pointing at him. At that moment, Luffy felt a great pain in his stomach and saw how a spear pierced him. He fell to the ground, falling into darkness, but he heard the man say, I'll make sure you don't get up again. But when he was about to throw his spear, a boy stopped him with his sword. Who are you? The man asked. I, as you, take care of this guy, said the boy. The man looked up and moved to dodge a bolt of lightning coming towards him. Then, a beautiful girl with black hair and a ponytail appeared with a smile. More problems, the man said. But he saw a crimson-haired girl appear before him and clicked his tongue. I see that you have taken care of my servant, Lord Fallen Angel, the girl said with a smile. Rias Gremory, it seems I can't finish my work, the man said with annoyance. It seems like you work for someone, may I know who it is? Rias asked formally. But the man looked at the sky and smiled, saying, I'm sorry princess, but they are calling me. I hope to see each other again at some point, ha 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 ha. The man disappeared with his laughter echoing through the place, and Rias went towards Luffy. Rias, are you sure what you're doing with this boy? Akeno asked. Of course Akeno, for some reason this boy looks like me and I like him, said Rias looking at Luffy. It was the last thing Luffy heard before falling into darkness. The next day, come on guys, we should run away. I finally found my answer, thanks to you, thank you. Luffy woke up startled by that dream, wondering who they were and why he was in a war. He looked at himself, finding himself naked, but he didn't care since he was a free being and slept like that. But he heard the sound of a female voice next to him, and removing the sheet he found a naked Rias Gremory in his bed and smiling at him. Good morning, she said. Luffy just gave a sigh and asked, may I know why you are in my house and in my bed naked? Rias got out of bed with a big smile. I see that you are someone who stays calm in these situations, she said. I learned to do it, Luffy said calmly. But the door opened, showing Mickey Haidu entering with a smile. Luffy, get up, you're going to be late too. Sorry, am I interrupting something? She said with a giggle. Mom, don't get the wrong ideas. She is a friend that I brought to study and she had to sleep here because it was too late, Luffy said, still calm. Oh, she's fine. So, she left them to get ready, goodbye, Mickey said, leaving. When they were alone, Luffy said, she is my mother, there are times when she poses scenes that are not true and that is why I had to lie to her. Haha, it looks like she's fun, said Rias. Now explain to me. What is happening here? And I want the truth, Luffy said seriously. Sure, I'll tell you everything, Luffy-kun. Or can I call you Luffy? She said with a flirtatious smile. Later, at the academy, Luffy was in the old building meeting with Rias and his group. "Can you explain to me what's happening?" Luffy demanded. Ara, what an imposing boy. He really looks like you," Rias Akeno said with a smile. "Well, the first thing you should know is that beings like angels, fallen angels and demons exist," Rias said seriously. Luffy remained calm at this, surprising everyone, and Kiba said, "It seems that this does not surprise you." "Not really, I'm a free believer, so I believe in anything," Luffy said calmly. "You're someone interesting, Luffy. Anyway, the beings that attacked you were fallen angels who want you dead," said Rias. "So, the girl I went on a date with was a fallen angel?" Luffy asked. "That's right, the reason why no one remembers her is because they used something to alter the memory of everyone she had contact with, except you," Rias explained. "Okay, but why do they want me dead?" Luffy asked seriously. "The only thing we know is that they discovered that you possess something powerful," said Rias. Luffy remembered what Yuma said when she attacked him. "Don't make me look so handsome, it's not your fault, it's from the sacred gear they gave you." "She said they put a sacred gear on me, is that it?" he said thoughtfully. Rias opened her eyes and said, "Interesting, it seems that you possess one of those sacred artifacts that the two of the Bible created. There is no doubt that they discovered that you had one and saw you as a danger, so they had to eliminate you. I see, that explains almost everything. What's missing is knowing why you saved me," Luffy said looking at her. Rias smiled and getting up from his seat said, "Because I made you one of my servants and now you belong to House Gremory. Welcome to the world of demons, Luffy." Then, bat-like wings came out of everyone and Luffy saw that he had them too. He analyzed what was happening and realized something horrible for him. "Wait, with this I lose my freedom and I'm not going to accept it. I am a free being and I hate slavery," the upset man shouted. "I admire your freedom, Luffy. Don't worry, I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do or be like a slave. A demon must be guided by his desire and if yours is freedom, I will respect it. You will only have to perform demon jobs, participate in games and fight renegade demons. Outside of that, you can do whatever you want," Rias explained with a smile. Luffy calmed down upon hearing that and said, "Well, in that case I have to think about it," said Luffy. "How about I explain the advantages of being a demon?" Rias said with a cute smile. The next day, Luffy was walking down the street thinking about what Rias said. There were many benefits to being a demon, especially being part of House Gremory. The most important thing was that they created an account just for him and that's where all the profits from his demon work would go. It was a good thing for him because with that he could help his parents for everything they did for him. He was thinking about what he would buy from them when he saw a girl fall to the floor. She had fallen into a bad position with her underwear exposed and Luffy thought she was kind of stupid. "Did you get hurt?" Hers asked, helping her. "No problem, I tend to fall often," the girl said with a smile. Luffy saw that she was pretty but at the same time pure of heart. That was something that attracted him to a woman because he identified with her. He gave her a smile and said, "My name is Highschool DxD Luffy, what is your name?" The girl also smiled and said, "My name is Asia Argento, my pleasure, Luffy-san." They walked together towards the city church since she had to go there and chatted along the way. On the way, they found an injured child with tears and Asia went to him to heal him with a power strange to Luffy. Luffy left Asia at the church and said goodbye to her, although he felt something strange when he saw the church. A while later, a cult research club. "You shouldn't have gone to that church, Luffy," Rias told him angrily. "I'm sorry, but I found that girl and I wanted to help her," Luffy said seriously. "I understand, but you should know that that place is enemy territory for demons. Remember that," Rias said, leaving. Luffy sighed and went to continue with his classes. At night, Luffy walked through the streets thinking about the girl named Asia and what Rias said. Suddenly, the sky became strange and that strange instinct for danger alerted him. He saw a woman walking towards him with a smile. "Wow, but he's the handsome boy that Rainer couldn't kill. I think I'm going to have fun with you before killing you," said the woman, creating a spear. Luffy gritted his teeth. He wasn't going to die, they weren't going to hurt him again. "I would fight, I would face that woman to live then." Images of those people in danger flooded his mind. "What's happening? Are you afraid, handsome?" the woman said mockingly. But a surge of strange power came out of Luffy that made her tremble in fear and Luffy glared at her. "I won't let you hurt my nakamas," Luffy shouted. Then, something strange appeared on Luffy's arm, creating a wave that sent the woman flying. Luffy looked at her arm, finding a strange glove on it. "What is this?" he asked himself. The woman looked at her arm with her mouth open and screamed, "It can't be, he is a Longinus." Luffy looked at her and decided to attack her, but the woman disappeared saying, "I have to inform Rainer of this." Luffy just sighed and headed towards his house. Chapter 2. Saving Asia and a surprise. Luffy was walking at night thinking about how he took down a renegade demon with Ria's team. He somehow felt alive, as if he were the same again after so long. He was now going to perform one of his demon jobs in a house where he was requested. The jobs weren't that bad, of course the ones he got were a bunch of weird ones, but they were pleasant jobs. He arrived at the client's house, but sensed danger before entering. He opened the door to enter and when he reached the room, he saw a strange man in a priest's suit. It seems that an evil demon has entered here, said the guy with a crazy face. Seeing him, Luffy had an image of a certain guy with glasses and an annoying smile in his mind. Who are you and what happened to the client? He asked seriously. Come on, don't act like that. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Fried Zelzen, and with respect to your client, well I killed him, ha 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 ha, Fried said with a crazy laugh. Luffy looked at him cautiously and said, then, I will have to eliminate you for having killed my client. Fried smiled and taking out a lightsaber along with a pistol, he said, in that case, let's have fun Demon-kun. He fired the gun, but Luffy masterfully dodged it as if he read his every move, which angered the priest. Stay still, you wretch, Fried shouted furiously. Do you think I'm so stupid? Luffy shouted angrily. But they heard a voice that surprised Luffy. Fried-sama. Luffy-san. What's going on here? Asked a surprised Asia. Asia? What are you doing here and with this crazy man? Luffy asked surprised. Fried just went towards her and tried to hit her, but Luffy threw him into a wall shouting, you bastard, don't you dare hit her. But then the atmosphere changed and Luffy was grabbed by a Kaneko who held him like a sack of potatoes. Kaneko, what are you doing here? The furious man shouted. We are here to look for you. Rias said appearing. Luffy looked at her in surprise, but he understood that he didn't want to lose him. Okay, but take Asia too, he shouted. I'm sorry Luffy, but the transportation circle only works with demons, we can't take her, Rias said seriously. That is a vile lie and you know it, I'm not leaving here without Asia, Luffy shouted furiously. Rias, your leader is coming, Akeno said seriously. Let's go, Rias ordered. The circle glowed and everyone disappeared even with Luffy's screams. The Cult Research Club. A slap sounded throughout the room with Luffy having his face turned to the side and a red cheek. What you did was reckless, Luffy. Rias scolded him with furious eyes. Luffy just looked at her with calm eyes. I see that my slap didn't affect you, Rias said with some admiration. I don't know why, but blows like this don't affect me, Luffy said carelessly. Rias clicked her tongue and heading to the door, said, I remind you that the church is enemy territory, so think carefully about what you will do. When she left with Akeno, Luffy sat on the couch feeling very weak. Is it so important to you to save her, Luffy-kun? Kiba asked him. Luffy sighed and said, maybe you don't understand it, but I consider it something called nakama just like you, and I must protect my nakamas. Kiba smiled and walking to the door, said, I like that ideal, it is like the president's of valuing her servants. Let's go to the church to save it. Really? But Rias said that, said Luffy. She said that the church is enemy territory of demons. She said it for your pawn piece, since pawns have an advantage that other pieces do not have. Promotion. Kiba explained. Of course, in a chess game when a pawn reaches the opponent's area she can become queen, Luffy said with a smile. Exactly, but not only a queen, the pawn can become a rook, a bishop or a knight by acquiring its capabilities. Kiba said with a smile. I understand, when I enter the church I can choose which piece to promote myself in to be stronger. In that case, let's go through Asia, Luffy said looking at the two. In the church, Luffy, Kaneko and Kiba were hidden looking at the church. I feel several presences inside, about 50 or more, said Luffy. So many? I could barely detect about 20 or so. How can you detect more? Kaneko asked. I really don't know, for years I have been able to feel any presence, but I don't know why, said Luffy. Well, now what do we do? Kiba asked. Luffy just made his gauntlet appear and said, enter and attack. Thus, the three entered the church, meeting Fried who looked at them with mockery. Yo, welcome. Are you coming to confess your sins? He asked mockingly. Kiba, the knight's ability is speed, right? Luffy asked. That's right, Kiba said. Good. Promotion. Knight, Luffy shouted running towards Fried. Fried wanted to shoot him, but Luffy disappeared from his sight and when he looked for him, he was beaten until he was defeated on the ground. I don't have time for your games, said Luffy entering the secret chamber. When they reached the end, the three could see Rainer next to Asia on a cross. Asia, Luffy shouted. Oh, you came handsome. But I'm afraid you were late, Rainer said with an evil smile. Then, the place where Asia was shined and she gave a great cry of pain. Luffy wanted to go after her, but the exorcists wouldn't let him and he had to fight them with Kiba and Kaneko. When they finished with everyone, Luffy saw in horror how rings came out of Asia's body and she remained inert on the cross. Oh, the twilight healing, the sacred gear capable of healing any, Rainer began to say with joy. But a blur took the rings and Asia, leaving her in shock. He looked at Luffy who had Asia in his arms with fury and shouted, give me back the sacred gear, damn it. Luffy looked at her with anger and said, if you want it, come get it. He ran at top speed to the altar and left Asia on one of the pews to watch as Rainer arrived furiously. You will return the sacred gear to me, whether alive or dead. This is my chance to stand before Azazel-sama and Shimhaza-sama, she shouted furiously. Luffy looked at her with tears for Asia and said in a cold voice, "You killed my Nakama, I'm not going to forgive you." Nakama? Ha 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 ha, is that insignificant girl a Nakama? You only met her recently, how can you consider her a Nakama? Rainer said mockingly as he created a spear of light. Suddenly, an intense pain appeared in Luffy's head and many images flashed through his mind. There is no such thing as Nakama, you can't trust anyone, you can only count on yourself and treat others like trash. Now she dies for your silly Nakama, Rainer shouted, throwing his spear against his. But something happened that she never expected. Luffy had caught the spear as if it were nothing, and it seemed that the light did not affect him despite being a demon. He did not understand how it was possible, but when he looked carefully he could see that on his arm there was a kind of black matter protecting him. It's not possible, the light should hurt you, how can you hold my spear like it's nothing? And what is that black thing on your arm? She screamed, scared. Luffy just gave her a look that made his blood run cold with fear and destroyed the spear with her hand. Then, he disappeared and reappeared in front of her with her black fist and something that scared her even more. Don't attack my Nakamas again, he shouted with anger worthy of a king. He hit her jaw with that strange power, sending her flying away from her. Imagine the scene where Luffy hits Kaido with the king's haki. Luffy looked at the hole in the window, wondering what happened and how he did it. He was wondering what that power was that he used earlier when he heard a familiar voice. Well done, just what I expected from my servant, Rias said with a smile. Luffy looked at her with some surprise, but remembered Asia and went towards her with the rings in his hand. Asia, it's all over, you can wake up now, he told her, trying to wake her up. But when he saw that he didn't do it, more tears fell from his eyes and Rias told him, I could hear everything you said to that fallen angel, and I feel proud of you. Don't worry, I have a way for her to survive. Oh really? Which one? Luffy asked hopefully. Rias took out a bishop piece and said, making her my servant. Luffy smiled and watched as Rias performed the ritual to make her his servant, along with returning the sacred gear to him. When he finished, Asia woke up after a while asking, what happened? How did I get here? Luffy hugged her with tears and said, you are with me Asia and I promise you that I will take care of her. Luffy-san. Are you serious? She asked with tears. Rias approached him and said, of course, Luffy has shown me that he is someone who keeps his word. Then, Kaneko appeared dragging Rainer across the ground. Sorry for being late President, but I had to look for you almost on the other side of the city, she said, looking at Luffy badly. Rias went to Rainer and found her completely defeated. She had seen the fight and was interested in that strange power that Luffy used to defeat her. Asia, could you heal her so I can talk to her? He asked her. Asia nodded and proceeded to heal Rainer until she woke up. She looked at everyone and when she saw Luffy, she shouted, what are you? What was that power you used? Fallen angel Rainer, you have been defeated by my servant Highschool DxD Luffy, and that is why your life is in her hands. Luffy, what do you want to do with her? If you want, I can kill her for you. Rias said looking at the two. Rainer looked at Luffy in fear of what he would decide and Luffy asked, Rias, is there any obedience contract between master and servant? There is one in which a demon can become someone's master and in which if the servant commits treason of any kind, he receives a punishment chosen by the master. But those contracts were forgotten a long time ago thanks to the evil pieces, why? She said looking at him. Luffy understood and said, let's do it with her, I will be her master with that contract. Rias nodded and created a demonic circle with the two of them in the center. Rainer watched the process in horror when Rias asked, Luffy, what will be the punishment for betrayal? Luffy remained thoughtful when Akeno whispered something to him with a mischievous face. X will suffering until death. Luffy shouted in confusion. The circle glowed and a mark appeared on Luffy's hand. How bad you are, Akeno. With this, when she tries to betray you, she will suffer hexwell pain until she dies and can only be relieved by the master with hexwell stimulation from him. Rias said with a laugh. Rainer looked in horror at what happened and Rias continued. Now kiss your new master's hand to complete the contract. What? Rainer shouted. If you don't do it, it will be considered treason and you will suffer the punishment. Rias said with an evil smile. Rainer clicked her tongue knowing that he had no other option and kissed Luffy's hand to make the pact. With that, the D symbol appeared on his left chest and with that the matter was solved. Days later, Ku Academy. Luffy and Rias were with the rest of the club, with Asia and Rainer included, as they talked happily. Let's celebrate that Asia and Rainer have joined the occult research club, Rias said happily. Yes, everyone shouted. But suddenly, Luffy fell to the ground screaming and holding his head. Luffy, what's wrong with you? Rias shouted worried. Through Luffy's mind, many memories flashed where he could see that he was in a life at sea. Everything happened quickly and in the end, he calmed down. Everyone was worried about him when he stood up and looking around, said, I already know who I am and where I come from. What are you talking about, Luffy? Rias asked. Luffy looked at them and said, I am Monkey D. Luffy and I am not from this world. I come from a world where he was a pirate and was looking for the One Piece to be the king of the pirates. But before I fulfill my dream, I fought that damn Akainu and then ended up here. How did I get here? And what happened to my nakamas? I can answer that for you, said a voice. Everyone looked and found a man with long black hair, an elegant suit and a big smile. Who are you? Rias asked. My name is D and I am the god of that boy, that is, I am the god of all those who have the letter D in their name. I was the one who brought you into this world and now that you have recovered your memories, I can bring you what you miss so much. D said with a big smile. Are you talking about Luffy? Asked hopefully. D smiled even more and made a magic circle appear in the room. After shining, certain people appeared before everyone that Luffy saw with tears. What happened? We were mourning Luffy's death and then we appeared here, said a girl with curious orange hair. Get off me, little eyebrows, a green-haired man shouted. Don't yell at me, Morimo, a man with blonde hair, responded. What a pain, said a boy with a long nose. Where we are? This looks interesting, said a black-haired woman. Luffy couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, eyes. They looked at Luffy and tears came out of their eyes, shouting, Captain, that's right, the Straw Hats have reunited with Luffy. Chapter 3. The Mugiwaras have arrived at Ku City. The Occult Research Club watched with surprise as Luffy was hugged by his entire crew, full of joy. What a joy to see you guys, now I feel complete. No wait, I don't have my hat, Luffy said, upset. Nami smiled and handed him her prized straw hat with a smile. Here you have it, I've taken care of it all week since we lost you, she said, handing it to him. 1 week? How is it possible if I've spent like 6 years here? Luffy asked, putting on his hat. I'll explain that. By bringing you here, I manipulated the time between both worlds so that the entire life you spent here was only a week there, D said with a smile. Luffy looked at him seriously and asked, why did you bring me here? The Mugiwaras were surprised by their captain's maturity, and Nami told him, Luffy, you've changed, you're no longer the same idiot you were back then. Luffy looked at her with her original smile, which when put on her handsome Luffy made her blush and said, Shishishi, don't worry, I'm still the same. Anyway, I want an explanation, D. He looked at him with a knowing smile and began to speak. Of course, I will explain everything to you. When you died in that battle, I decided that you should not have such a regrettable end, and I transported you to this world at 10 years old. I blocked your memories, except for your name, with the guideline that they will be unlocked today, and now I will return your nakamas to this world so that you do not live this adventure alone. Luffy nodded to his explanation, but Robin had one more question. Excuse me, D-san, but why did he send you to this specific world? Good question. Because I know that my champion Luffy will be able to solve the problems of this world. The proof is in what he did before you arrived. Well, I have to go, but first I must say something to both the Mugiwaras and the Gremory group. Mugiwaras, when Luffy has lived through much of his adventure in this world, I will return you to yours with the ability to travel between them so that you can continue here. As for Uria's Gremory, I must clarify that Luffy and his nakamas fall under my jurisdiction, so take care of them. He said with a big smile. I guess I have no choice, she said with a sigh. Well, before I go you should know that I will probably bring more people from your world from time to time, so be prepared. And 2 more things. Luffy, I have returned your fruit with some modifications, and I have also put his ship inside a cave near his house. See you, said D, disappearing. When they were alone, Luffy turned to his nakamas and pointing to Ria's group, he said, Eyes, meet the new friends I made in this world. This is Ria's Gremory, the leader of the Occult Research Club, and heir to the Gremory clan in the underworld. It is a pleasure to meet my adorable servants nakama, Ria said with a smile. All the Mugiwaras looked at her somewhat confused, except for Sanji who had hard eyes looking at Rias, and Nami asked him irritably, how about your servant? Rias looked at her somewhat amused and explained with her noble attitude, Luffy is my servant by reviving him with my evil pieces, turning him into a demon. In other words, I am his mistress and he is my servant. Almost all of Luffy's nakamas were left open-mouthed. Sanji was cursing Luffy for having had such good luck, but Nami was the one who exploded. No way, Luffy will not be anyone's slave, release him right now, she shouted, looking at Rias with fury. Rias was unfazed by having the orange-haired girl in front of her releasing a power so strong that those in her group were almost on their knees and said, Unfortunately for you I cannot do it, once I give him the pieces he will continue to be my servant until he dies, and since he is a demon, he will now live for at least 10,000 years. But I never expected that Nami would grab her uniform, increasing that strange power of hers, making her a little scared, surprising everyone, and that she would yell at him angrily, release him now. Rias could see in her eyes the soul of a great strong-willed queen, capable of facing death for what she considered precious. Then, Luffy went to Nami to try to calm her down. Calm down, Nami, I don't have any problem with that. Why do you get angry that I am his servant when I am alive thanks to that? He asked her calmly. Then, Nami hugged him lovingly while she said, because I admire your sense of freedom, that you do not let yourself be governed by anyone, that you do not allow them to decide what you should do, and you do not even allow destiny to govern you. That's what I love about you. Everyone was shocked by her words and Rias laughed saying, you're right, Luffy has that great quality and I admire him. But don't worry, let him explain to you what it means for him to be part of my family and the benefits of it. Benefits? What would these benefits be? Nami asked, looking at her with half-closed eyes. Rias proceeded to tell the Mugiwaras all of Luffy's benefits of being a demon of the House of Gremory, and when she finished, Nami was thoughtful. So, Luffy should only do demon jobs, hunt evil demons and participate in some kind of games? She asked seriously. That's right, other than that he is free to do whatever he wants, as long as he doesn't go against the House of Gremory, Rias replied with a smile. I see, they also create an account where the money from his work is deposited. That's good for him. But I don't understand about being promoted to upper class. Nami said curiously. Well, among demons there are classes, these being low, medium, high and supreme. Luffy is a low class since he has only just begun to be my servant, but he can rise in class with merits, going from low to medium class and from medium to high class. Upon reaching high class he becomes king and can obtain his own evil pieces to form his own team of up to 15 members. Rias explained. So, by becoming a high-class demon, he could also convert us with those pieces? Robin asked interested. Exactly, with that they will be able to live more or less 10,000 years, have improvements that we have, and be able to use demonic powers. Does it seem like a good life to you now? Rias explained with a knowing smile. I have a question, my beautiful Rias Swan. Can I have many girls with this? Sanji asked with hard eyes and fluttering around Rias. If that is your wish, of course, Rias replied, somewhat annoyed by the cook's attitude. Wonderful Luffy, make me your servant when you become king, and so I will have my dream harem, Sanji shouted, kneeling before Luffy. Luffy patted his face and said, calm down Sanji, I will make you a member of my family, but you will have to calm your lust. In any case, Luffy, will you make all of us part of your family with those pieces? Zoro asked. That's right Zoro, with you I have 11 at once, and I only have to find 4 more, said Luffy. Luffy-kun is so efficient that he found 11 future members in one go, Akeno said with amusement. Fufu, Captain Sen is more than efficient since he managed to recruit each of us in a very curious way, Robin said, also amused. Fufu, I see that you are a woman of adventure like me, I think I'm going to get along well with you. Akeno said looking at her with a tender smile. Fufu, I think I just found a fun companion, Robin also said with a tender smile. Luffy saw this with some concern since he knew that if those two women got together, more than one would be harmed. Then he looked at Rias and said, sorry for asking you this Rias, but I need help with my house, since with all my nakamas here, I won't be able to install them completely, and some have problems as you can see. You're right. I have the solution to your problem, she said, taking out her cell phone. The Mugiwaras stared at her artifact, wondering what she was, especially Usopp and Frankie, when Rias finished and told them, everything is already arranged, when you get there you will see your new home. I am surprised by the ease and speed with which demons do things like that. Well, I'll take advantage of the fact that it's very late at night to take them home. See you on Monday, Rias, said Luffy, starting to leave with his nakamas. Goodbye Luffy, goodbye Mugiwaras, said the Gremory group. Time after, the Mugiwaras had gone to the cave where D had left the Sunny and had packed up all of his things. Now they were where the Haidu residence should be, finding a huge mansion in front of them. It is the same as the original DxD story. Wow, it's like a palace, Nami shouted in wonder. He asked me what the kitchen would be like, said Sanji. Yo-ho-ho-ho, it is such a lively place. Although I'm dead, yo-ho-ho-ho, Brook said, laughing. It shows that they did a good construction job. I want the plans, Frankie said excitedly. I want to go in to sleep, I'm sleepy, said Zoro, entering. First we must introduce ourselves to Luffy's mother, you fool, Nami yelled angrily. It's true and I must reveal the whole truth so that she understands it, Luffy said with a sigh. So they entered the residence, meeting a confused older woman. Son, who are they and what happened to our house? She asked him. Luffy took her by the hands and took her to the living room of the new mansion to sit her with the others and said, Mom, I must explain many things to you, and the first thing you should know is that I am not from this world. Mickey looked at him carefully and asked, can you explain me? Thus, Luffy told her all about her life in her world with her nakamas until she found him and also told her how he was a demon under Ria's tutelage, along with how his nakamas got there. When he finished, he looked at her mother with some fear that she would reject him, but he noticed a beautiful smile when she said, I see, that explains a lot of things. It seems that my beloved son had great adventures with many friends. Luffy smiled happily knowing that they didn't reject him, so he took his mother's hands again and said, listen Mom, this is not going to change anything between us. I am Monkey D. Luffy in my world, but here I am Haidu D. Luffy, son of Mickey Haidu. I promise to take care of you since Dad died, and that promise will not be broken. Everyone was in tears because of Luffy's words, and Nami stood next to him to tell her mother. He is right, ma'am, nothing is going to change, that he will continue to be his son. Mickey looked at her carefully and with a smile asked her, are you my son's girlfriend? Everyone was with their mouths open, except Robin, who was smiling amused, and Zoro, who was sleeping on the couch. Luffy had a red face and tried to say, "Wait, mom, she is." "That's right, I'm Luffy's girlfriend," Nami said, interrupting him. Now everyone was looking at her with their mouths open, even Robin and Zoro, who woke up from her. Mickey then hugged her and said, "Welcome to the family, my daughter." "Thank you, mother," Nami said, reciprocating the hug. At the end of the hug, Mickey told everyone, "Well, welcome to our house. Make yourself comfortable and I hope you enjoy our world. I'm going to the kitchen to make a delicious welcome dinner. Please, Mrs. Haidu, allow me to prepare dinner," Sanji said in gentlemanly mode. "It is very kind, but since it is a welcome dinner for you, I must do it. Wait here and chat while I prepare it," Mickey said, leaving. When they were alone, Luffy asked Nami, "Why did you say that?" Because I realized my feelings for you when I lost you. Now that we are together again, I don't want to waste this new opportunity. Don't you feel the same way about me?" She told him with tears in her eyes. Luffy was shocked by this, but smiled and pulled him closer into a hug as she said, "No. I was also able to realize my feelings for you in this new life. It makes me happy to know that you love me too." Nami smiled at his words, and when she looked at him, they both brought their faces closer and gave each other a beautiful kiss that was seen by the entire crew. Some were smiling, others were envious of Luffy, one was biting his sleeve, and two were thinking about his feelings, making a decision. When they finished, they both looked at each other lovingly when they were interrupted by a cough. "Excuse me, but I also wish to confess my feelings for Captain San," Robin said seriously. "What?" everyone shouted. "I'm sorry, Navigator San, but I also realized how I feel about Captain San when I lost him, and I wish to be with him," Robin said very seriously. "But I'm already with him," Nami yelled at him. "Well, Navigator San, I understand that demons like Captain San can have several wives. Therefore, he can be with both of them," Robin said with a knowing smile. Nami thought about it for a moment and looked at Luffy. "What do you think, Luffy?" she asked him. Luffy thought about it a bit when Sanji intervened. "Even though it hurts, I advise you to do it since this way you can make those who love you happy, Luffy." Luffy nodded and said, "If the girls don't have any problems, I accept." But those words, Nami and Robin threw themselves into Luffy's arms, but someone else spoke. "Hey, don't leave them out," Yamato shouted. Everyone looked at her surprised. "Yamato, you too?" Luffy asked. Yamato just blushed and lowered her head, somewhat embarrassed. Luffy just laughed at her attitude and extended his arm, saying, If you love me I will accept you too." Yamato smiled and joined the hug with the other two girls. Then, Mickey appeared and said upon seeing the scene, I see that my son is a man full of love. It makes me happy to have more daughters, but dinner is already ready." With that, everyone was already eating the delicious dinner that Mickey prepared for them. "This is so delicious and I have never seen dishes like these. Could you give me the recipes, Mrs. Haidu?" Sanji asked her with emotion. "Sure, I'll give you my best recipes," Mickey told him. "Don't worry, Sanji, at the academy there is a cooking course where you can learn more recipes, and if you get to the university, you can choose a complete course where they will teach you recipes from all over the world," Luffy told him. "What are you talking about, Luffy?" Usopp asked curiously. I spoke with Rias and enrolled Nami, Zoro, Sanji and Usopp in the academy to attend. Robin will also enter, but as an archaeology teacher when she knows what is necessary in this world. The others will stay here because their appearance will scare people," Luffy explained. "Do we really have to go to that academy?" Zoro asked, somewhat annoyed. "Are we really going to scare people?" Chopper asked sadly. Luffy looked at them seriously and began to explain, in answer to Zoro's question. "They are in a world they don't know, and I am the only one on the crew who knows how this world works. They have to know about the language, economy, politics, gastronomy, history and many other things, so that they do not feel like strangers here, and the academy will serve them. They will be placed in the foreign program with those who will first teach them the language of this country so that they can catch up. As for others, the people of this world are not like ours, they easily accept the unknown, it scares them, and they fear it. Therefore you must stay here with my mother and will only go out at night with me when it is safe. However, I will ask Robin to teach you guys about this world. Are you okay with this?" Everyone nodded at his words and continued with dinner. When they finished, they chose her rooms, with Nami choosing hers and Luffy, and then went to sleep. While Nami slept comfortably next to her, Luffy thought that the next thing that would happen in his life would be total madness now with his nakamas next to her. Chapter 4. The new adventure begins. The weekend had already passed, where the Mugiwaras had the opportunity to get to know their new world. Luffy took Nami, Sanji, Zoro, Usopp and Robin to buy new clothes, cell phones and other useful things for them to settle into this new life. He also bought several useful books so that they could learn to read and write the language of Japan, while Robin, who had already learned the language, studied about the archaeology of the world. It was already a new day of school, and the 4 Mugiwaras were at the entrance of the residence with their new uniforms. "I look good in this uniform, right, Luffy?" Nami said, modeling in front of him. "You look very beautiful and I have no doubt that you will be another queen of the academy, along with Rias and Akeno-san," Luffy told her with a smile. "Queen of the academy? It doesn't sound bad at all. But does your maid have to come with us?" Nami asked, looking at Reiner with hatred. "I already told you everything about her and that's why I can't leave her here. And please, Nami, stop looking at her with so much hate," Luffy said with a sigh. "I can't, this bitch had the nerve to kill you. If it hadn't been for Rias, we wouldn't even be here, we would still be mourning your death," Nami said angrily. "I still can't believe that Luffy has a beauty as his maid," Sanji said with envy. "Yufufufu, Captain San is so lucky," said Robin in her teacher's outfit. "Well, let's go since I want to go back to sleep," said Zoro with 3 wooden swords. "You will only fall asleep in class and you will surely be in the wrong classroom," Usopp said with a drop of sweat. "Well, let's go now, we'll be late," said Luffy, opening the door. But the other Mugiwaras bidding them farewell, the 5 walked to Ku Academy for their classes. After walking for a while, with a search for a missing Zoro later, they managed to arrive and the students were shocked to see them. "Look, he's the Ice King and he's accompanied by guys I've never seen," one said. "That orange-haired woman is a beauty," said another. "That green-haired boy carries 3 wooden swords, do you think he wants to join the kendo club?" asked one looking at him. "That blonde is handsome, but something makes me stay away from him like those 2 perverts," said a girl. "That one with the afro has a big nose, I've never seen a nose like that," said another. "Look at that older woman, she looks like a teacher and she is a beauty. I want you to teach me," said a boy. The Mugiwaras heard these murmurs and Nami asked Luffy, "King of Ice. Why do they call you that?" Luffy only encouraged her to continue listening and Nami could notice that all the girls at the academy were looking at her with anger. "How dare that slut be so close to the Ice King?" growled one with demon eyes. "You better stay away from Luffy-sama or we will curse you," said another furiously. "Luffy-sama is so pure and he cannot be stained by any slut," another roared with a voodoo doll that had the name Nami. "He hasn't chosen a girlfriend yet because he wants to choose wisely, that's why we call him the Ice King. That damn bitch is not going to stay with him," said another with a knife from who she knows where. Nami, hearing all this, smiled like a cat and hugged Luffy, squeezing him against her breasts. This caused all the girls to throw curses at her, the girl with the doll to poke her with nails, and the girl with the knife to make a murderous face. Nami just looked at them and stuck her tongue out at them like an evil kitten, making her fury even worse. When they finally entered the building, Luffy said, "You shouldn't have done that, now you will be known by them as the Academy's bitch. Let them think what they want, I don't care. Anyway, how come you don't choose a girlfriend because you want to do things right?" she asked him curiously. Luffy sighed and explained, "I have received thousands of requests from girls to be their boyfriend and I have rejected them. There were some who only did it to deceive me, but I discovered them and rejected them in the fiercest way. That's where my title Ice King comes from." "Wow, it's something incredible. But I think now it will be the Ice Trio with Zoro and Sanji-kun," Nami said with a smile. "I don't think so, it will be the Ice King's duo formed by Zoro and me," Luffy said with a smile. "Why do you say that, Luffy?" Usopp asked. "For them," Luffy responded, pointing forward. They saw the 2 perverts Mitsuda and Motohama glaring at Luffy. "Luffy, damn it, how can you come with a beauty like her?" the 2 shouted, launching themselves towards him. But Luffy just kicked them to the ground with disinterest as he said, "Should I ask your permission? Well, meet my girlfriend Nami and my friends Zoro, Usopp and Sanji. These are Mitsuda and Motohama, my friends at the academy." Motohama looked at Nami adjusting her glasses and said, "Well, let's find out her measurement." But Luffy kicked him in the glasses with an angry look. "Leave her alone, I forbid you to use your disgusting perverted ability with her," he shouted, looking at him seriously. Nami clung even closer to Luffy for protection, but Sanji approached Motohama to ask, "What skill do you have?" Motohama smiled pervertedly and said, "I can know a girl's measurements perfectly. For example," she pointed to a girl nearby. "That girl. 92, 60, 95, a good and juicy body." Sanji had stars in his eyes and looked at Mitsuda. "And you?" he asked excitedly. "Ahaha, I can take photos of women's bodies successfully. I have a large collection in my house," he said proudly. Sanji had tears in his eyes and said, "I have found my companions." The 2 looked at him and asked, "Are you like us?" "That's right, I'm a pervert and I have a great ability. I can detect a beautiful girl even if she is very far away," Sanji said excitedly. "Comrade," the 2 shouted, hugging him with tears. As they watched the strange scene, Luffy said to the two perverts, "Well, now they have the partner they wanted so much for their perverted threesome, so I hope they leave me alone with that." "Sure, hey Sanji, don't you want to go to the girls' locker room to spy on them changing?" Mitsuda said with a perverted face. "Of course, let's go," Sanji said excitedly. Then, the three of them made a pose and shouted, "Long live perversion," and they ran away. "Are you sure about leaving Sanji-kun with those two?" Nami asked Luffy with a frown. But to their surprise, Luffy started laughing, confusing them. "What's so funny, Luffy?" Zoro asked. "There are two reasons why I did not join their much-desired perverted trio. 1. Because I am not a pervert like them, and 2. Because I am not a pervert like them, and 2. Because every time the girls discover them, they beat them until almost killing them." "I think they already know Sanji's fate," Luffy said with a mischievous smile. "Ahahaha, the perverted cook deserves it," Zoro said, laughing. "You're bad, Luffy," Nami said with a cat-like smile. With that, they left for classes and of course, Zoro got lost on the first day. After school, Luffy and his group were in the occult research club room in front of Rias, who was looking at them with a smile. "It's good to see them again, and I must admit that they look good in our uniforms. Especially your Nami, you look radiant," she said sitting in her chair. Nami smiled cat-likely and placing a hand on her desk, she said, "Thank you, but I advise you to be careful or I am going to take away your reign in the academy." Rias flashed her own patented smile and said, "I accept the challenge, but now let's get to our business. Send for Luffy and Asia to get their relatives." "Relatives? What is that?" Luffy asked curiously. You met mine on your date," Rias said showing a small bat. "This is my familiar." "Sorry, but I don't remember," Luffy said looking at him. Then the bat was covered in a puff of smoke and in its place was a beautiful woman that Luffy recognized. "I remember you gave me the pamphlet that Rias showed up with," Luffy shouted, pointing at her. Rias made his familiar disappear and explained, "Family members are useful for that kind of thing, in addition to being good fighting partners. That is why we will go to the relatives' forest so they can get theirs." But the door to the club was knocked and Akeno opened it, revealing a black-haired girl with glasses and several students behind her. "A student council president?" Luffy asked. "Oh, do you know her, Luffy?" Rias asked. "Luffy-kun has done some favors for the council, so he became a great friend." "So they are your nakamas?" "I was very surprised when Rias told me that they came from another world and that your friends appeared here," said the girl, adjusting her glasses. "Well, I'm glad you're Sona's friend." For those who don't know her, she is Sona Citri, president of the student council and heir to the Citri house of the underworld. Rias introduced. "So you're also a demon? That makes the council your team, if I am not mistaken. Then I will fully introduce myself. I am Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hats and future king of the pirates." Luffy introduced himself with a smile. "I see that you have a very big goal in your world, Captain," said Sona. "That's right, and I won't stop until I accomplish it. Now I will introduce you to my crew and I will start with Nami," Luffy said pointing to her. Nami approached and introduced herself. "My pleasure, I'm Nami, navigator of the Mugiwaras and future pirate queen." "Nice to meet you, I can assume that you are the order of the crew," Sona said with a smile. "That's right, I don't know what I would do without her." "Now my swordsman Zoro follows," said Luffy, pointing at him. Zoro was lying on a wall sleeping, but he opened his eye and said, "A pleasure." Sona laughed when she saw him and said, "I can see that he is strong despite being lazy." "Yes, he is the second strongest of the crew." "Now Sanji is next and he is my cook," said Luffy, pointing at him. Sanji took Sona's hand and gave her a kiss, saying, "My beautiful lady, I am Sanji, a gentleman with women and a great cook." "You forgot to say big pervert too," Zoro said. "You shut up, Marimo," Sanji shouted. "Force me," Zoro shouted at him. Thus their classic fight was formed that Nami had to stop. "That's how they always are." "Now I present to you Usopp," said Luffy, pointing at him. "Hello, I am Usopp and I have 8,000 men under my command," Usopp said with a smile. "He is a liar, don't pay attention to him." "And lastly there is Robin, the crew's archaeologist," said Luffy, introducing her. "Fufu, I can tell that she likes chess. Would you like to play with me someday?" Robin said with a smile. Sona smiled and said, "I would love to, maybe you can be a great opponent." "Well, it's good to meet you, but I come to talk to Urias because my pawn Saji is ready to get his familiar and I understand that 2 of your servants are too." "Oh my, it's a problem since they only allow 1 group at a time." "What do you suggest, friend?" Rias said seriously. "I was thinking of solving it in a small tournament to decide which group will go," said Sona. "Sounds good to me, but let's introduce your pawn to get to know him better," Rias said with a smile. "You're right. Saji, come here and introduce yourself," Sona said to one of her servants. The blonde boy stood in front of everyone and said, "Hello, I'm Genshiro Saji, it's a pleasure to meet you." "It's a pleasure, Sani-san," Asia said with some shyness. Seeing her, Saji got into a flattering mood and taking her hand, he said, "Oh my beautiful blonde, allow me to be your brave knight who oh. He was interrupted when Luffy took his hand and squeezed it tightly. "It's nice to meet you, I'm Highschool DxD Luffy and I'm Rias Gremory's pawn," he introduced himself calmly. Saji glared at him and said arrogantly, "So you're the pawn? I have 4 pawns in me, which makes me very cool. How many do you have?" Luffy just looked at him neutrally and said, 8. Saji gaped at him and looked to his mistress for an explanation. "Saji, didn't you listen when I said that he came from another world?" Saji fell to the ground with a black cloud above him saying, "It's not fair, it's not fair." Sona sighed and said, "Well, how about we hold the tournament once and for all?" "Sure, friend," Ria said with a smile. After the tournament, well, we managed to defeat Sona's team with the help of Luffy. Now we are going to the forest for his relatives and your group can accompany us," Ria said with a smile. Thus, everyone traveled through the magic circle to the family's forest, being greeted by a strange man. He guided them through the forest after a long explanation until they reached the pond. "Here is the lady of the forest, a beauty without equal," said the guide. Then, something seemed to come out of the pond and Sanji stood in the front row saying with hard eyes, "I want to see her, she must be as beautiful as a goddess." But what he saw left him with a great trauma since the famous lady of the forest looked more like a man full of muscles wearing a dress. "What the hell is that thing?" Sanji shouted in terror. "She is the lady of the forest," said the guide. "That lady thing has nothing," Sanji shouted furiously. "I think she is a very pure lady," Luffy said calmly. "You're right Luffy, she looks very pure," said Nami. "We agree," said Ria's group. "Beautiful and pure," said Robin with a tender face. "You have to be kidding," Sanji shouted without believing it. They continued much to Sanji's relief when gelatinous things began to fall on the girls and their clothes began to melt. "What are these things?" Luffy asked with some anger. "They are a kind of special slime that melts clothes," the guide answered. "They are perfect Luffy, make them your family," Sanji begged. "No," Luffy responded, looking at him angrily. "Because? Then let him be mine when he is your servant," the blonde begged. "No," Luffy denied again. "Don't be so mean, Luffy," Sanji cried. But he noticed how the girls eliminated the slimes and was horrified. "No curry, don't die," I screamed like a soul in pain. "Did he name it after a food?" Usopp wondered with a drop of sweat. They had already eliminated almost everyone and only those over Asia remained. Luffy was going to be the executioner of those things, but Sanji stood in the way to stop him. "Sanji, get away, I will destroy that abomination once and for all," Luffy ordered in a tone that Sanji had never heard from him. "Never, I won't let you kill Curry," Sanji denied firmly. "Move of the middle, it's an order from your captain," Luffy shouted with more fury. Rias looked at him in admiration of his leadership aura. "Never, I will protect Curry with my Sanji shouted when he was electrocuted next to the slimes in Asia. "Thank you Nami, you didn't want to pay attention to me," Luffy said looking at her. "It wasn't me, Luffy," Nami said, trying to cover herself. Luffy looked at Akeno, but she denied and looking at Asia, he could see a small blue dragon with her. "Wow, I didn't expect this little friend to show up," said the guide. "Why?" Rias asked. "He is not friendly and when someone tried to do it to his family, he attacked them. It seems like he likes the girl," the guide responded. "Well, this asshole eliminated Curry, what do you say about it?" Sanji shouted at the dragon. The dragon looked at him and fired a volley at him, singeing him. "I forgot to say that he hates other males," said the guide. "Well, in that case I have to stay away from you, little friend," Luffy said with a smile. The blue dragon looked at him and to everyone's surprise, it flew towards him and landed on his shoulder to nuzzle his head against it. "How is it possible? This can't be," he shouted, not being able to believe it. "I know how it's possible. Luffy has a pure heart and surely this little friend knows it and that's why he accepts it," said Nami, caressing the little dragon. Luffy smiled and took the dragon to Asia saying, "It makes me happy that you accept me, but I would like you to be with Asia so that you can protect her. You could do it." The dragon nodded and landed on Asia's head. "Well, Asia has a good family member now. But what about Luffy?" Rias questioned. When the guide was about to speak, a fireball fell before them and a curious little monkey with flames on its head emerged, dancing happily. "What a surprise, it's the guardian of the forest," said the guide with a smile. "The guardian of the forest?" Nami asked, looking at the little monkey tenderly. "He is the one who protects him and like that dragon he has not accepted anyone, playing jokes on everyone. He is very strong since the other family members made him the guardian," the guide explained. Then the monkey went towards Luffy and climbed on him to dance on his shoulder. "I see that he has accepted you, boy," said the guide, surprised. Luffy saw the little monkey with a smile and said, "You seem like someone in search of freedom and adventure. Tell me, would you like to go on adventures with me?" The monkey squealed in joy and with that, Luffy and Asia formed the contract with Asia, calling the dragon Raffi and Luffy calling the monkey Nika. Moments later, Highschool residence. Luffy and his group were returning to the mansion, but upon entering, Mickey told them, "Son, a man appeared and wants to see you in the living room." The five and Asia looked confused to go to the room and found D with the rest of the crew. "Hello Luffy, it's good that you arrived," he said with a smile. "D, what are you doing here?" Luffy asked confused. D smiled and extended his hand to the ground so that a magic circle appeared. "It's just that I want to bring you someone else," he said with a big smile. The circle shone brightly and then revealed a person, and Luffy could see it with his mouth. The person looked at him and shouted with joy. Luffy, Chapter 5. An ally appears and meeting with a bird. Everyone looked at the newcomer with open eyes, and Luffy said his name, Hancock. Sure enough, the former Shichibukai and pirate Empress Bow Hancock stood before them with her prized snake Salome at her side. She pounced on Luffy, giving him a loving hug on her breasts while he cried. "Oh my beloved Luffy, I thought he had lost you forever when I read the news of your death. I was crying non-stop in my palace for a week, ready to die if I couldn't live without you," she said through tears. "But now you're here with me, Hancock," said Luffy, smiling between the big woman's breasts. "It's true my love, but where am I? The last thing I remember is that I was crying with Salome in my chambers, and then a strange circle appeared on my bed, and then I found myself here," Hancock said confused. "That's because of me. Nice to meet you, I'm D, Luffy's god, and I was the one who gave him another chance to live here," D said with a smile. Hancock looked at him in amazement and said with a bow, "Thank you for allowing my husband to stay alive. No problem. I leave now, but I'll come back another time to talk or maybe bring someone else. Bye," said D disappearing. When D left, Hancock looked at Luffy and asked, "My love, where are we?" Luffy smiled and proceeded to tell him everything about her life in this world, including the arrival of her nakamas. When he finished, Hancock was impressed and said, "Then you are a demon in the service of one Rias Gremory for having saved your life. I don't like that my beloved Luffy is anyone's servant, but if you don't have a problem with that, then neither do I." We thought the same. I confronted her and demanded that she release him, but Luffy told me that he had no problems with that, so I resigned. Although, when Luffy manages to become king we will have the opportunity to be part of his team," Nami told him. Hancock looked at her seriously and, putting on a smile, said, "It seems good to me, Luffy will become king soon, and he will be able to demonstrate his great power to the world. And I want to be in Luffy's family." Luffy gave him a smile and said, "Of course, I will include you in my family, and I also know how much you love me, so I will include you in my harem so we can be together." Hancock was so happy that he threw himself into Luffy's arms and kissed him lovingly. When she finished, she told him with great joy, "I promise to be a great wife my love, you won't regret it. I know not and I ask you to get along with Nami, Robin and Yamato, I don't want them to fight over me," Luffy told him seriously. "Of course not love, I promise," Hancock said with a smile. "Oh, it seems I already have another daughter," said Mickey, appearing. Hancock looked at her confused and asked, "Like what daughter?" "Hancock, this is my mother. I told you about her and she calls all my girlfriends her daughters," I explained. Hancock smiled and went to Mickey to hug her saying, "Nice to meet you mother, I hope we get along well." "Don't worry daughter, welcome to the family," Mickey said with a smile. Then, Luffy said to everyone, "With Hancock's arrival I will have to talk to Rias to include her in the academy. We will pass her off as an 18-year-old foreign student so she can enter and Hancock, you will have to leave Salome here while you are at the academy." "No problem," Hancock said. "Okay, now let's go to sleep so we can return to the academy tomorrow," said Luffy. Thus, after Luffy talked to Rias about Hancock, everyone went to sleep with Luffy sleeping next to Nami and Hancock since she asked to sleep with him. The next day, club room, Rias saw Hancock with some rivalry since they were both very similar in ability and attitude. "So you are that Rias who turned my beloved Luffy into his servant?" Hancock told him, making his classic pose of contempt. Rias just stayed calm, watching her with a noble smile, something that Hancock noticed and admired about her. "Don't worry, I already explained that we demons follow our desires, and that's why Luffy has absolute freedom," Rias told her with her smile still on her face. Hancock put on his own smile and said, "Well, I will trust you to take care of my beloved Luffy. But if I find out that you hurt him, I'll kill you." "Don't worry, Hancock, it's not that big of a deal," Luffy told her seriously. "Fufu, don't worry Luffy, I like her as well as Nami, and I hope we can be friends," Rias said with a giggle. Hancock smiled even more and said, "I hope so too." With Hancock presented to Rias, they returned to their club activities. In the afternoon, Rias was watching the sunset through the window while she sighed when a voice surprised her. "You think about him, right?" She looked towards the door to find Nami and Hancock looking at her with a smile. "What are you talking about, Nami?" Rias asked, hiding her nerves. "You can't fool us, that look is that of a woman in love and I know it from experience," Hancock said. "Besides, you watch the sunset the same way I watch the sunrise while thinking about Luffy. Tell me one thing. It's him, right? Did you fall in love with Luffy?" Nami said, approaching with Hancock. Rias sighed knowing that she was cornered and confessed. They discovered me, I'm falling in love with Luffy. Are you mad at me? Of course not, we already decided among the girls in our group to share it and we have no problems with you or the girls in your group joining. Nami said with a smile. That's right, Luffy deserves all the love possible and I feel like you can give it to him too, Hancock said. Rias smiled at his words, but then she put on a sad face and said, I appreciate his support, but unfortunately I cannot join. But why? What prevents you from being with the man you love? Nami questioned, confused. It's just Rias tried to say, but a magic circle appeared in the club room. I'll tell you everything another time, now you must leave. They both didn't question her and left for the Haidu residence. That same night, Luffy was testing his Hito powers, not my Nika model, so that he could fight like before. Well, I still remember my attacks with my fruit and improved it so that it wouldn't affect my mind or my growth. Now. But he was interrupted when a magic circle appeared in his room and Rias Gremory stood before him with a determined look. Rias? What's wrong? Luffy asked worried. Rias just started to take off her clothes and when she was left with only his panties, he pushed Luffy towards the bed. Rias, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Luffy asked seriously. But Rias only put his hand on one of her breasts and said, please make me yours tonight, Luffy. Any man would have jumped on her and taken her, but Luffy just grabbed her shoulders to look at her with serious eyes and say, Rias, I can see that you have a big problem that makes you unhappy, but you can't solve it like this. I'm grateful that you chose me and love me, but I don't want such a special moment to be tarnished because you feel obligated. Hearing those words, Rias couldn't stand it anymore and began to cry into his chest until a new magic circle appeared and a gray-haired woman in a maid's outfit appeared. Wonderful words, young man, they have moved me too and I congratulate you for controlling the situation. My name is Grafia and I am the maid of the Gremory house. Come on Rias-sama, we must prepare everything for the meeting, Grafia said, extending her hand. Rias nodded, but before leaving he said to Luffy, thank you Luffy for your words, now I know that if I want to be with the one I love, I must first solve what prevents me. See you tomorrow. Just at that moment Nami and Hancock appeared and heard Rias' words and looked at her sadly. When Rias entered the magic circle, Grafia looked at Luffy and said, I see that we were not wrong with you, it seems that we can leave it in your hands. And with that, they both disappeared from the room, leaving Luffy with Nami and Hancock alone. What happened, Luffy? Nami asked worriedly. Rias came so I could have sex with her, but I didn't do it because I noticed that she felt obligated because of a problem she has, Luffy explained. And do you know what the problem is? Hancock asked. I don't know, but I suspect we'll find out tomorrow, Luffy said seriously. The next day, club room, Rias' group, Luffy's group minus Robin, were gathered for a teacher meeting in Grafia. Why were we brought together, President? Luffy asked in a formal tone. Rias was going to speak, but Grafia beat him to it. I'll explain, the matter of the meeting is to discuss Rias Gremory's engagement, she explained. Engagement? Nami asked worried. But they heard a male voice that said, I'm here, dear. Suddenly, an orange magic circle appeared in the room and flames rose to reveal a man with blonde hair, an arrogant look, and criminal clothes. Nami and Hancock looked at him with disgust, Zoro looked at him with disinterest, Usopp looked at him with some fear, Sanji looked at him with hatred, and Luffy just had a frown on his face. It's been a while since I last came to the human world. Hello dear Rias, here is your brand new husband. Said the idiot arrogantly. This is Razor Phoenix, Rias Gremory's fiancé, Grafia announced. Luffy and his group's eyes widened at this revelation. Moments later, Razor was drinking tea with Rias sitting next to her, while the oaf took the opportunity to touch her, as if she were a toy. In Luffy's group, Sanji watched this with great flaming anger, but he was calmed down by Luffy's order not to make a fuss. Suddenly, Rias got tired of the game and stood up shouting, That's enough Razor, I already told you that I won't marry you. Razor laughed arrogantly and said, Dear, you know you can't change this. It is for the good of the underworld. I don't care, I don't plan to live in something like this, I won't get married without love Rias told him, looking at him furiously. Nami and Hancock smiled as they thought, well done, friend. Razor looked at her with fury and taking her chin, he said, I'm not going to let you ruin this for me. If you oppose me, I will burn your servants to ashes. They both looked at each other with eyes full of power, but Grafia interrupted them saying, Stop, I can't allow you to start a fight here. Fortunately, the higher-ups have approved a rating game to solve this, where if Razor-sama loses, the engagement will be cancelled. Luffy's group smiled at this, but Razor just laughed saying, It will be a waste of time. I can see that you only have a small team Rias, however. He snapped his fingers, making a large magic circle with flames appear and continued, I have a complete team. From the circle, 15 girls of different types and who seemed strong appeared. Rias looked at this with disgust as did Nami and Hancock, but a certain blonde already lost his temper. 15 beautiful beauties. You're a miserable son of a bitch, Sanji shouted angrily. Razor looked at him and asked, Who is that idiot? Luffy was the one who spoke for Rias. Forgive him, he is my cook. He is a good fighter, but he has a great perversion and dreams of having many women. Razor looked at him carefully and said, I see. Balloona. The woman of great beauty and purple hair came towards him with the order. Upon reaching her, Razor kissed her in front of everyone, provoking Sanji's fury even more, and then began to massage the woman's breast saying, this is what you want, right? Damn son of a bitch, I'm going to beat you too, Sanji shouted, grabbing his leg. Sanji-kun, you received the captain's order not to make a fuss, calm down, Nami yelled furiously. Hearing her, Sanji calmed down, and a blonde girl with spiral pigtails looked at Nami in admiration for such control in the team. Razor noticed Nami as well as Hancock and smiled wickedly. But what beautiful beauties we have here. What do you think if you come with me so you can be with a real man? He told them, approaching them. Sanji was being held by Zoro and Usopp so that he wouldn't attack the idiot, and Luffy looked at everything calmly, but inside he was full of anger. I'm sorry, but we already have a boyfriend, our captain who is there, and he is much more of a man than you will ever be, Nami told him arrogantly. Exactly, a disgusting man, how you would never touch my beauty. Only my beloved Luffy is worthy of having her. Hancock said with the attitude of his empress. The Mugiwara smiled at this, and Razor felt humiliated, so he tried to grab Nami, shouting, no one insults Razor Phoenix, bitch, I'm going to. But his hand was grabbed by Luffy, who stood in front of Nami and said angrily, unfortunately you are attacking someone under my jurisdiction, so I have every right to intervene. Stay away from my future pirate queen or I'll kick your ass. Razor moved away from him a little and with a frown, asked, pirate queen? That's right, I will be the king of the pirates, and Nami will be my queen. But Hancock is also with me, so I will also protect her from you and whoever she is. Luffy answered with a smile. Hearing this, Razor burst out laughing and said, you the king of the pirates? A simple low-class pawn. Ha 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 ha, don't make me laugh. I'll show you how weak you are, you scum. Look, teach him a lesson. The blue-haired girl jumped towards Luffy and hit him in the stomach with her gun. However, Mira watched in horror as Luffy looked at her with a smile, and her punch did nothing to him. Shishishi, that won't work, he said, pushing his weapon away. With that, Mira flew back to her team and Razor asked in disbelief, how is it possible? Do you want to know how? I told you, Luffy is more of a man than you will ever be, Nami said, hugging Luffy next to Hancock. Razor gnashed his teeth at this and shouted, I dare you for your 2 girls, damn if you lose against any of my team, those 2 girls will be mine. Luffy gritted his teeth and started shouting, no way, my girls are no trophy for. We accept the challenge, Nami interrupted him. Luffy looked at her in shock and said, but Nami. However, she kissed him passionately to the fury of Razor and the amusement of 2 demon princesses. When separating from her, Nami said, trust me. Then she turned to Razor. But just as he risks 2 girls, you must risk 2 of yours. If you lose against him, you must hit 2 of your girls. You're welcome, Razor began to say, but was interrupted. We accept, you will be given 2 girls from our team of my choice. Said the girl with blonde pigtails. Bravo, don't, Razor tried to say. Shut up, Onisama, you've already caused enough trouble, let's go, she ordered, pulling him by the ear, but she turned to Nami. I like you a lot, I can see that we are very similar. I hope we see each other again. Nami smiled like a cat and said, likewise, and keep that fried chicken under control. With that, Razor and his team left, leaving the others alone. It seems like everything went well, said Grafia. What will happen now? Chapter 6. Training for the game. The Gremory group and the Mugiwara group were walking up a hill toward some sort of mansion at the top. Are we going there to train Luffy? Nami asked, looking at the large mansion. That's right, in that place we will train to be able to fight against Razor's team, Ria said with a smile. Well, maybe I can learn about demonic power and the power of my sacred gear. However, I want to teach you something in return, something that can help you in any fight. Luffy said, carrying a huge luggage without problems. Would you teach them about hockey, dear? Hancock asked. Hockey? What is that? Asia asked curiously. They'll know soon, Luffy said, giving him his usual smile. Moments later, everyone was sitting in front of Rias, who was explaining the functioning of the underworld. You should know that the underworld is made up of 72 main houses, called 72 pillars. You already know 3 of them. The Citri House, represented by Sona Citri, the Gremory House, represented by me, and the Phoenix House, with Razor Phoenix as one of its members. After the Great War between factions, several houses have ended up on the brink of extinction, but the Phoenix House was one of the few that could survive due to its immortality trait. She explained. In other words, their immortality is what has made them so important in the underworld, and for that reason they favor them. Robin said, understanding. It could be said. Well, there is a lot more information about the underworld, but this is the most important for now. Let's continue with the training, said Rias. Excuse me, Rias, but I want to explain about hockey and how it could help in our fights, Luffy said, standing up. Rias looked at him surprised and with a smile went to sit down while saying, "Of course Luffy, I have been interested in that strange power since you showed it." Luffy stood in front of everyone and began his explanation. "First of all, in our world there are powerful people like the Yonkas who can conquer the world by themselves. They can only achieve this through haki, the willpower of a materialized person." "Well, materialized will be used as power?" Kiba asked, intrigued. "That's how it is. When used as power you can use 3 versions: armor, observation and the king. I will explain the armor first with a demonstration of what it looks like," Luffy said. He showed his arm, which was covered in a black cloak, surprising the entire Gremory group. "Is that our will materialized?" Rias asked, looking at Luffy's arm with great interest. "Partly. With the armor haki, we have a powerful defense against users of Akuma no Mi of the Loja type and even against weapons such as swords and bullets." Luffy continued explaining. "Does that serve to defend oneself from anything?" Kaneko asked interested. "Almost, but I was able to discover in my confrontation against Rainer that it can even make a demon touch the sacred light without being damaged," Luffy responded with a smile. "So, that way you were able to take my spears without damage and apparently covered them with that armor haki," Rainer said with a frown. "Can that haki also be covered in weapons?" Kiba asked with great interest. "That's right, we can cover swords and even bullets to increase the power of said weapons," Zoro responded, showing how he covered one of his swords with haki. As Zoro says, armor haki can be covered in the weapons you use, increasing their resistance and attack power. In addition to that, there is an advanced mode of the 3 types of haki, and the armor mode allows you to impact your opponent internally. Luffy continued. "Interesting," said Rias, excited by such power. "Now let's go with the observation. This haki allows you to predict an enemy's attacks, detect the presence of any living being, and see from a distance. It is mainly used to evade enemy attacks and for aiming with ranged weapons. The advanced mode allows you to see a time in the future, more or less 5 seconds, with which you will know what your opponent will do and act against his movement." Luffy continued explaining. "In a chess game, that can be considered the biggest cheat in the game, but in a raiding game it is acceptable for fighting," Rias said in wonder. "Yufufu, Sona would love that power," Akeno said amused. "I think so, she would use it to strengthen her strategies and then she wouldn't be able to defeat her," Rias said seriously. "I don't deny it, that girl is very good with strategies and if she learns it, we will have to be careful." "Well, the last one is the king's haki and this is the most special of all," Luffy said. "Why is he the most special?" Rias asked, paying full attention. "Because this haki can only be acquired by 1 in a million, while the other 2 can be learned by anyone, and I will explain why. The quality that distinguishes the king's haki is the will of a king and its purpose is to break the weakest wills. Those who manage to possess it are known as great figures in my world and have left their mark in history," Luffy explained with a powerful look in his eyes. Rias looked at him as he analyzed what he heard and asked, "I guess you own it, right, Luffy?" Luffy smiled and pointing at Zoro, Nami and Yamato, he said, "I own it just like Zoro, Nami and Yamato also own it. I will explain its function better. When you use it, all those with a weaker will than you will faint due to your will as a king. That's what it means to have the will of a king and that's why it's so rare. The advanced mode of this haki is the covering of this power to attack and you can cover both your body and your weapons with this king's will. When used this way, you can hit an enemy without touching them and cause damage that normal attacks are not capable of." The entire Gremory group was speechless at this information and Rias said, "The power of a king to subdue your enemies. I think that I do not possess such magnificent power." Luffy looked at her with a smile and said, "Don't worry, this power can manifest itself as a child or in adulthood, so you have the opportunity to possess it and I know that you possess it because you have all the qualities of a king." Rias smiled at him and Kiba asked, "Will you show us that power?" "Sure, but I think they will only be able to learn one type for now since we only have 1 week. They will have those specialized in both types to teach them. Zoro in armor and Sanji in observation. If they can learn one of the main types we will have a better chance of winning the game. After all, haki is the power that can make it possible to conquer the world." Luffy responded with a smile. Everyone nodded and began training. The Gremory group accepted the tutelage of the Mugiwaras to learn haki and put all their effort into awakening one of them. Luffy on the other hand, was focused on learning to control his demonic powers and was explained that his imagination was the key. With that, he discovered that it was very easy for him to use demonic power, being able to create fire, lightning, wind and other useful things. He decided to implement this into his fighting style so as not to get too complicated. 5 days of training passed, in which the Gremory group managed to awaken a type of haki. Rias managed to acquire the observation one just like Akeno and Asia, while Kiba and Kaneko got the armor one. However, they couldn't settle for acquiring it and had to train it for the game, so they took the other 5 days for that. As for Luffy, he achieved several things with his demonic power and got new attacks to fight. But on the 5th day, he had a very curious encounter with a certain entity within him. "Wow, so you're my new wielder?" said a huge red dragon in front of Luffy. He saw it without fear and asked, "Who are you?" "Interesting, you don't show any fear in front of me and you carry a dignified aura. I like you boy, I'm Dragon, I'm the Sekiryuite, the dragon of your boosted gear," said the dragon now named Drake. "My boosted gear? I see, you're the soul inside my sacred gear," Luffy said looking at his arm. "That's right, and I want to help you beat that bird. There is a very great power with which you can defeat him, but you will have to train for 5 days to achieve it," Drake said seriously. Luffy looked at him for a moment and then smiled at him as he said, "That's great, it's very kind of you to offer me that power and I appreciate it." Drake looked at the purity in Luffy's heart and said, "Ahahaha, it seems that I am not wrong about you. No wonder all those girls fell in love with you without needing my power to attract people." "Power to attract people?" Luffy asked confused. "It is a power with which my previous wielders attracted powerful people to them. Some of my male wielders had a harem of women to take advantage of this power, and the same thing happened with women who attracted powerful men," Drake explained with a smile. "But that is something similar to mind control, and I don't like it. I prefer that women love me for who I really am and not for a power that makes them love me falsely," said Luffy angrily. "Well, you're lucky, somehow that power was blocked since I broke up with you and I can't release it. But even without it you are surrounded by beautiful women because of your pure heart and that can be better than that power," Drake said with amusement. Luffy sighed and said, "That may explain my ability to create allies so easily. Well, let's train to obtain that power." And with that, Luffy spent the next 5 days trying to acquire Drake's power. On the 10th day, everyone was in its inhabitants sleeping, but Luffy was awake and walking around the mansion. Then, he came across Rias who was looking at the moon on a balcony, dressed in a transparent negligee. "Oh Luffy, I didn't expect to see you at this time," Rias said with a beautiful smile. Luffy couldn't help but admire her beautiful body through her transparent clothes, and under the moonlight, she looked like a goddess of beauty in all her splendor. But he pushed those thoughts away and approached her as he said, "I wanted to walk a little to relieve the tension." "What are you doing here?" She looked at the moon for a moment and said longingly, "Luffy, why do you seek to be the king of the pirates in your world?" Luffy stood next to her and also looking at the moon, responded, "The Pirate King is the freest man in the world and I seek that freedom." Rias looked at him with eyes full of admiration and said, "Freedom, you are not looking for conquest or recognition, only freedom. You are truly worthy of that title." Luffy looked at her with a smile. "Thank you, but I have a deeper dream of being the king of the pirates," he said. Rias looked at him interested and asked, "And what is that dream?" Luffy opened his lips and said. Rias looked at him with her mouth open and her eyes full of surprise. After a while, she laughed and said, "Ahahaha, certainly typical of a king like you." She looked at the starry sky and said with desire, "I wish I could live such wonderful adventures in your world." Luffy looked at her in surprise and after thinking about it for a while, he said, "Maybe you can." Rias looked at him in surprise and asked, "What are you talking about, Luffy?" "I'm talking about when everything is over and I can return to my world with the ability to travel here whenever I want, I will take you and your group to my world so you can live great adventures with me," Luffy said looking at her with a big smile. Rias put on a beautiful smile and said with emotion, "Great, I would love to go with you to your world and have incredible adventures." Luffy smiled and offering her hand to her, said, "So, it's a promise?" Rias shook his hand and said, "It is a promise." Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.